when I was little, I was very sensitive. I cried a lot. Like I could just cry if my dad looked at me wrong. And I think it kind of made him crazy. Or uncomfortable. It didn't really make him crazy. It made him uncomfortable. And he would say to me when I would really be in a big crying jag, he would say to me, "You look so ugly when you cry." So I would run in the bathroom then thereafter and grab a towel and just cry into the towel. And I wouldn't leave the bathroom until I was finished crying. And I'd try to wash my face off, because this is the messaging that I was receiving, is that I was too ugly when I cried. So, okay, message received. I'm not allowed to cry in front of people. I had a temper. I guess I kind of still do, but I learned to tamper my temper. And so I received the message that I wasn't allowed to be angry. And I would get reprimanded whenever I felt angry. And I took that experience and it's piling on to the fact that I'm not allowed to cry. So now I'm starting to realize, okay, these are emotions I'm not allowed to have. And I'm not blaming this on my parents per se, but I'm just sharing. This is the experience as the adult, remembering what the child went through. And I do remember too that, well, I'm definitely not allowed to talk back. And sometimes I got the message that I wasn't even allowed to stand up for myself. Then it conflicted with information that my mom was giving, wherein she was sexually abused as a child by her own father. And she swore that none of us, that wasn't going to happen to any of us. So she would have different talks with us, basically just saying, if anybody touches your no-no areas or whatever. She didn't say it that way, but I'm going to say it that way just for the sake of sharing here. And I received it, but at the same time, my dad, his behavior led me to believe that I had no say. I had no boundaries. That whatever he wanted, that's how it was. Okay? Whatever the adult wanted, that's how it was. And you had to follow the rules. If you didn't, you got in trouble. You got spanked, or you had to stand on a line in the kitchen and wait until you confess. I know it's like really ridiculous things and all out of context here, but as a kid, this is what you're receiving. You're receiving, okay, here's the societal rules to live in your childhood home, and this is how you have to behave in order to survive. Okay. So then my grandfather moves in, and he has his own moral code of things, and those aren't so great. He was somebody who, he was just an angry man, and I think he would take his anger out on his kids. And next thing you know, he's molesting me. He's buying me. But before he gets there, of course, it's this whole grooming process that happens, right? And he's going to take me, and he's treating me more special than my siblings. Oh, I'm going to go take a nap. And then he's taking me along for the nap. And this is how things began. And as I'm watching the dynamics with my parents, I'm realizing I'm not safe. I don't feel safe. I hate what's happening. But how do you speak out? My dad doesn't even believe the stuff that my mom's telling him in regards to his own father. Why is he going to believe me? And my mom, for all intents and purposes, is a boss too.
3 out of 4 adolescents who have been sexually assaulted knew their abuser well.
So now I'm lost and alone, and I'm doing these things that I don't want to do. I don't have a way out. He's manipulating and telling me, oh, but if you go and you tell on them, it's going to be your fault. You're going to be the one in trouble. They're going to hate you. They're not going to believe you. And it's all this programming that he's placing down there. So basically, I'm now a person with no voice, no say in what's happening to my own person. And that's scary stuff. And it's interesting because as these things are happening, there's this whole other thought process that's happening inside of my own mind. Yes, I'm stuck here. I got to do this. But I clearly know that this isn't right. This isn't the right way to be. He used to come into our bedroom at night, and I shared a room with my sister, and we had bunk beds. And I was on a top bunk and she was on the bottom bunk. And he would come in to tuck us in. And I guess the one day he was really trying to feel her out of like how far could he go. And she asked me one night before he came in, she asked me, she goes, Kath, could you, I don't like what he's doing. Can you stop him or something? So she's asking me to rescue her. And I did. The sad thing is he was kind of like, "Ooh, she likes this." And I'm like, I'm just in this deeper. But I protected my sister. So I at least felt a little bit good about that. My grandfather was great at wiping away boundaries. He used to hold us down and tickle us until like we're screaming. And in fact, even when we were screaming and crying, he would still keep tickling us. So again, setting up that stage for where like you have no say. You're here to exist and that's it. And I get to do whatever I want to you. Which, by the way, is not right by any stretch of the imagination. Goes by, he ends up leaving the house. Him and my dad had a big blowout, but my parents never knew what was happening, amazingly enough. And I feel like it's through his manipulation. So not only is he manipulating me, he's manipulating everybody else around me, because that's how that happens. That's how pedophiles get away with it. It's not just the child that he's controlling or she's controlling, it's everyone around the child. Well, thank God, he's finally out. And I'm like, yay, this isn't happening to me anymore. But lo and behold, there's other people that tend to show up. And I find out many years later as an adult, I find out later that there's a certain profile that these pedophiles look for. They're looking for a child who's needy. They're looking for a child who isn't seen, for one who's maybe unloved, for one who doesn't feel special, for one whose boundaries are wiped away. He's gone, somebody else tries, and I'm still not finding my voice, and I'm thinking, golly, I'm just living in hell here. This is like total hell. I'm so alone. I feel so ugly. I don't really necessarily feel happy. I've become very quiet and withdrawn. And in a house with 3 other siblings, it's not like my mom's picking up on those things because she's also dealing with her own crap.
Victims of sexual abuse can display a wide range of signs and symptoms. Depending on the person, it can show up in many different ways.
I spent the night at my aunt's house, and I'm sleeping on her living room floor, and in the middle of the night, her husband comes out. And he's going to lay next to me and he's going to start trying to touch me. And I'm like, oh, I'm not having this. At this point, like I'm a few more years older and I'm like starting to realize, oh no, there's got to be more than this. And do I really have to put up with this? So I took off and I ran up their stairs. And now I'm in my cousin's bedroom and I have no idea where my cousins were. And I'm standing on my cousin's bed and he's coming at me and I'm yelling, hey, Rose, help me. And as soon as he heard me start screaming her name, he froze, and now he's begging me. He's begging me. No, don't do that. No, oh. And then he leave. Oh, I'll leave. Don't tell her I'm leaving. And he left. I found it really interesting. At that point in time, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. What just happened here? I started yelling. I screamed, and this person's going away? Wait. This really feels good. This really feels good. And then I'm also thinking about too, my aunt is no more than maybe 5'6", 5'7", and he's over 6 feet. And I'm like, he's so afraid of this little petite woman? This is really interesting. And I used my voice and he left. This is even better. So from that moment on, I started to realize I have power. I have power in my voice. I have power in my words. I definitely could use my legs and run, but if I get trapped, I still have power. I can scream for help. This was like gold to me. I had a friend, she was my best friend, lived across the street, and her brother got a mini bike. And behind my house was a big open field, and the boys who do have the bikes, they kind of like made a track, and they were giving out rides. And I'm standing in line, and I'm so excited. I can't wait to go for this ride. I just can't wait. And my friend went first, or at least she went before me, because her brother's mini bike and he's giving them rides. And she's coming back, and I'm like telling everybody, like, I'm so excited, I'm next, I'm so excited. And I'm like really joyful inside and feeling all that joy. And she comes back and she gets off the bike and acts like she's done, and I'm getting ready to go on, because he had like 2 helmets, so we didn't have to wait for her to take hers off and me to put mine on. She just hopped right back on, and she goes, "That's what you get for bragging." And she took off. My feelings were crushed. But because I've learned earlier that I'm not allowed to have feelings. Basically, I'm not allowed to have feelings. And now I'm learning I'm not even allowed to be happy. Because if I'm happy, I'm accused of being something else. So this is all piling up on a fragile ego to begin with. Boys did scare me. And it was feeling like that lack of personal control, of being able to say no, because, being abused and having that experience, then you're programmed into being submissive on some level, whether you realize it or not. There is that level, because what I've discovered, it's about having boundaries, your personal boundaries totally wiped out, which meant that you're open to anybody to cross those personal boundaries and disrespect you and take advantage of you. My first boyfriend, I was in 11th grade, he was a senior, and we were dating, and he was the very first person I ever told about what had happened to me as a child. And it was very healing in some level, because there was the acceptance and the loving part, where he definitely held the space and he cried, because, I cried when I was telling him about it. And at this point, I'm still sort of a victim. And that's where I am. I'm a victim because I haven't really reached any healing. I haven't even started my healing journey at this point.
About 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 20 boys in the United States experience child sexual abuse. These numbers likely underestimate the true impact due to underreporting.
Looking back, I understand it was a very toxic relationship on so many levels, because he had his own issues. And it's interesting, though, to watch the track as like now as adults, right? So here I'm with him, and I feel like he's this really stable, good influence. This is what I'm thinking and believing. And I loved him so much, I would have done anything for him, which right away is a red flag, because at that age, that just means I still haven't established my personal boundaries. Like, even though I'm uncomfortable as hell, I'm ready to strip naked for you because you want it. I don't want it, but I'm going to do it for you. That's not healthy. That's not right. If you don't want it and it makes you uncomfortable and makes you afraid or nervous, you're not ready for that. You need to establish personal boundaries. What was funny is that he noticed that I never really got mad at him no matter what he did. I think it became his personal goal to make me mad. He would do stupid stuff to incite anger in me. Hence the toxic relationship. And I would only say that I was either sad or happy. Those are the only 2 emotions that ever existed within me, because, again, way back when, that's what I was taught. There was some show on TV, and I couldn't even tell you what it was, but it displayed this couple, and she was all upset, and she was sharing with him her story of being molested as a child, and how nurturing and loving he was and accepting of her. So whoever's watching this and listening to this, if you've been abused, please allow me to let you know I see you. I love you. You're a beautiful person. You are not what happened to you. That was an experience you had. That's not who you are. And you deserve to be loved and happy. And that was the thing that I was fighting for. I was fighting to be loved, to be accepted, to be happy, but I didn't quite understand what that meant. It is a journey towards healing. It's a true journey. It's not like something that we experience as trauma whether it be sexual molestation or being robbed or raped or any of those things, having a tree fall on your house. Oh yeah, that happened to me too. Any of that, it's a road, it's a journey towards the healing. But the first place that it starts is with you and recognizing that that is something that you need to work towards. And it doesn't have to be hard per se, but sometimes it does feel hard. Because I know, even after graduating high school, it was still very hard. I felt very alone. I felt like there was nothing for me. What am I doing here? I was driving a car and I'm going down this big 4-lane highway with a big cement wall, and I'm thinking, you know what? I could just do this and just end it all. I could just do this and it'll be done. I won't feel this pain anymore. I won't feel so alone anymore. And then the thing that stopped me was believing in God. Believing in God and thinking, oh my goodness, if I did this, he'd be so mad at me, he won't talk to me, and I couldn't stand that. I found something more than me. I found, even though it's a disembodied or a spirit or whatever, but there was love. And that was the first step towards me loving me. Because if I don't love me, I can't feel anybody else's love for me. So I have to self-accept. And as part of self-accepting and self-love, it's setting healthy boundaries. And it took a long time for me to understand and learn that. There are a lot of great books out in the market now. There are a lot of good YouTube stuff out there now for anybody who's looking. Just type those things in. Setting healthy boundaries. For me, I found a book from Henry Cloud and John Townsend regarding boundaries. So my first boyfriend, first one I ever told, when I finally told my mom, it was because my grandfather was coming for a visit and my bedroom was the guest room. So I was displaced for company. And we're sitting in a parking lot of a shopping center, and I'm being a little argumentative with her. And I'm usually not, because I'm still healing up from that programming set into where, I have to follow the rules. And if I don't follow the rules, bad things happen to me, like getting molested or whatever. But I just refused. I could not stand the idea of this man being in my bedroom with my underwear drawer either. So I wasn't having it. So then I had to tell her why. Why am I being so argumentative? And when I told her, she started screaming at me. Why didn't you tell me this before? I swore it happened to me. It was never going to happen to my girls, and blah, blah, and I told you. And she's carrying on and carrying on and carrying on. And I just calmly sat there and just received her outburst, because I understood. And I was amazed at what it was that I understood. But I understood at that point in time, that was her own pain, her own guilt coming forward. It had nothing to do with me. But younger, I didn't understand that. And so I just told her, once she paused, I just calmly said to her, I said, well, Mom, because I wasn't ready for this reaction. And she just went stone cold sober. And then she apologized, and then we talked it through, and she did everything she possibly could to protect me from him moving forward. It is in that whole journey. And I realized too, okay, so setting healthy boundaries, step 1, towards self-love. Step 2 is stop telling yourself bad messaging. Stop saying negative things to yourself, like I'm ugly, or I'm not smart, or I don't deserve this, I'm not lovable. Stop saying those things. Start saying those positive affirmations. That, I'll tell you, had really saved me a lot, and it really helped me to shift out of being a victim. Tell your story. Don't be ashamed to tell your story. Find somebody that you trust. Find somebody you can take into your confidence and tell your story. If you haven't told it to anybody else yet, please tell it now. Because it's in telling your story, receiving their space and their love and their reaction helps you to work through it. And the first few times you tell your story, yeah, you're going to feel like you're being victimized again, potentially, because maybe you haven't worked certain things through. But know that you really aren't a victim unless you allow yourself to continue to be a victim. And I think that that was a major realization for me. 'Cause so that helped me in telling and sharing my story. And for a long time, I received people's sympathy. I did. I received it. And thus playing that victim role in receiving their sympathies. But now, much later, I realized that no, empathy's fine. I don't need to be victimized, so I can understand someone empathizes with me. I have no problem sharing this story anymore because it doesn't define who I am. If anything, I took what had happened to me and I made it my superpower. Did you know that? And I realized through some of my job experiences that, the crux of who we are and the very root of who we are is love. And we all want to be loved. We all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. We all want to be accepted. I don't care who you are. On some level, you want that. That's a reality. That's the human. That's part of being a human. The thing too is I would not accept the idea that I cannot change who I am. I get to decide who I want to be. We each get to decide that. And every day we get to decide that. Every day, every choice that we make is a step towards making that decision of who we want to be. And for me, at the root of who I am, I wanted to be whole. I wanted to be healed. I wanted to be I wanted to be love.
Help is available for victims of sexual abuse. RAIN.org can assist you in finding the help that you need.